Good night, Shabbos, everyone. Shabbos Parshas Eikev. And we'll start with the first pasuk and the first Rashi, and we're going to have a question that you can share at your Shabbos table regarding the first Rashi. The pasuk says, "V'hoya Eikev tishmu'un eis hamishpatim ha'ela," and as a result, the Targum translates Eikev as meaning a result. As a result of listening to the mishpatim, to these mishpatim, these statutes, ushmartim va'asisim oisim, and you will guard them and you will keep them, you will fulfill them. V'shamar Hashem elokecha l'cha es habris v'esachesed. Hashem is going to keep the covenant and the chesed Hashem nishbal v'secha that He promised your forefathers. Okay, that's a good deal. It's a good deal that if we keep the mitzvahs, HaKadosh Baruch Hu takes care of it. So keep the bris, we'll keep the chesed. Rashi is bothered by, all the Mefarshim are bothered by, what's this lashon Eikev? What does Eikev mean? It means like a heel, right? V'haya Eikev tishmo. So already the Unkelus says one mahalach, but here Rashi says a different mahalach. Rashi says, "Im ha-mitzvahs hakalos," if the easy mitzvahs, she'adam dash ba'akevav tishmu, the easy mitzvahs, the light mitzvahs that a person treads on with his heel. Rashi is quoting the Medrash Tanchuma, and the Medrash Tanchuma, as quoted by Rashi, is learning that Eikev is coming to signal to us if we keep those neglected mitzvahs. There are mitzvahs that we're very into, and there are mitzvahs that we neglect. If those lighter mitzvahs that we tread upon with our heel, Eikev means a heel, that we're dash ba'akevah, if we keep those mitzvahs, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to be shomer the bris and the chesed. Hashem will keep the covenant, and He'll keep the chesed that He promised our forefathers. So what does it mean there are mitzvahs that we neglect? Here's the question to ask at the Shabbos table. The Torah is talking to Frum Yid. The Torah is talking to religious Jews. So why would a religious Jew deliberately neglect a mitzvah or a group of mitzvahs to the point that we have to have a pasuk telling us you better make sure to keep those Eikev dika mitzvahs, to keep those mitzvahs that we tread on with our heel? Why would a religious Jew ever have? Okay, there's a yetzer hara that sometimes we succumb to and then we do an aveira. That a person is going to say, "Nah, these mitzvahs don't apply to me." That's very rare. It's very rare that we find such a thing. So how do we understand this? So there's a few mahalchim, three mahalchim I'd like to share with you. Number one, Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch says that a very interesting observation which applies today. Many things he says apply today still. And that is that he says every generation there are certain mitzvahs that for some reason don't make the cut. He calls it arbitrary differentiation, at least in the translated commentary, which means that there are certain things that it's arbitrary, but we just say that, nah, not this. This is not so important. Whatever it might be. In the pre-World War II America was a number of things. Today, maybe we can argue it's lashon hara, but now Baruch Hashem there's a resurgence of that, of being careful with lashon hara. But there are mitzvahs that we're not always so makbid, we're not always so careful with. And we have to make sure that we are not arbitrarily differentiating between the mitzvahs. That's a Hirsch's mouth. Rav Schreck Zatzal has a different mouth. He wants to say that the mitzvahs that we are dash, that we step on with our heels, those refer to averis or mitzvahs that are more subtle, right? So says Rav Schreck, I'm not a guy. I'm not a thief. I would never go to someone's house when they're not home, open the door and walk in and take out their, a bunch of svarim, take out their microwave. I'm going to steal their cutlery or their china. I would never break into someone's house, and do that. That's geneva, that's robbing, that's wrong. But what about not putting a sefer back on the bookshelf? That is a type of thievery that's much less subtle. That's not so subtle. That's not so obvious, that type of thievery. So there are mitzvahs that were dash ba'akevav. It doesn't refer to a yid who says these mitzvahs don't apply to me. But there are subtle applications of the mitzvahs that we're not always so careful about. So making someone wait for an appointment, right? That's also a type of gzelos. None of us will pickpocket someone else. But will I come late to an appointment? I know the person's waiting. Maybe he has other things he has to do. So it's referring to the subtle mitzvahs. Whereas Rav Hirsch was saying there are mitzvahs in each generation that kind of fall by the wayside. Rav Schreck is saying there are subtle applications of the mitzvahs that sometimes we don't keep. That's what the pasuk is referring to. Rav Yitzchak Elchanan Spector explains the Kovner Rav. He explains that it's referring to, which is similar to Rav Schreck, it's referring to things that right now seem to be insignificant. It's infractions of halacha that right now are not significant, but if you look down the line, it's very likely that they'll lead to a significant breach in halacha. And there's a story about Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector that brings this out. He was once, I think he might have been already retired from the rabbinate in Kovna. He was an old man, he was weak, he was sitting and learning the whole day. One of the main influential Balabatim of his community, of his former shul, was marrying off a child and asked that the Kovna Rav, Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector, should be the Mesader Kiddushin. He should officiate at the wedding. So, okay, he's going to make an exception because this is a devoted, dedicated Balabas. And he's going to make an exception for him. He's going to come out of retirement, so to speak, and officiate at the wedding. Once Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector learned that the wedding is not taking place where all the weddings in Kovna took place. All the weddings in Kovna took place in the courtyard, in the chutzner of the shul. But this Balabas wanted the wedding to take place in his own chutzner, where it would be grander and be bigger and more fancy and more better, be better. So he wanted to have the chasna in his courtyard. And Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector said, I will not be Mesader Kiddushin at a chasna that is not taking place in the shul's chutzner. It's a break from the minig in the Kovna. The custom in Kovna is chasna in the shul's courtyard. I'm not going to have any part in any of the chasna, in any other place. So the question they asked is, well, what's the big deal? Meaning, it's not like a minig like kidneys, where it's usher for an Ashkenazi to eat kidneys on Pesach. We're not talking about like a real minig. It's like it evolved that in Kovna they had the chasnas there, but it's not really a minig. But Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Spector saw in that slight breach of the done thing, he saw that could lead potentially to Chilul Shabbos. Apparently small, looks small right now, Eikev Tishmon. Eikev Tishmon, that it looks like it's a very small thing right now, but down the line, a big breach is coming. So that's something that our Gedolei Yisrael are able to see. We've said many times that the Brisk Rav used to say that Reb Chaim can see 30 years into the future. You can see what's going to happen. A certain pikchus, a certain ability to discern the future that a Talmud Chacham has. And that's why Eikev Tishmon. That's the Eikev. It's referring to those apparently small breaches in halacha that down the line can be very significant. And that's what the poskim are always dealing with when new innovations come up. And everyone's like, why can't we do it? Well, you don't see where it's going to lead. These Gedolim see where it's going to lead. 3 mahalchim in Eikev Tishmon. And I'll end with, it's a Chassidish mahalach. Now, I don't remember where I saw this. It might have been the Sfas Emes. You can fact check that, I'm not sure. But this is a Chassidish mahalach, not like the Medrash Tanchuma. But what does it mean, Eikev Tishmon? Eikev is the heel. So says this vort that if you view yourself like a heel, if I listen to the mitzvahs as a heel, meaning what? I am just the heel of this big body. The heel is the end of the body. I see myself in the historical context. I realize, and we spoke about this on Tisha B'Av, I realized that I wasn't born on the day that I was born. Really, my identity is hooked into Klal Yisrael. And every one of us on some level was born back then on Matan Torah, when Jewish history really began. It began before that with Avraham Avinu, but when the Yidden became Yidden on Matan Torah, that's where our individual histories began as well. And really, we have to see ourselves as being the heel of a much larger body, of a much larger entity. If we listen to the mitzvahs with the realization that we are part of this massive, massive history, conglomerate of Jewish people from all the generations, then a Kadosh Baruch Hu protect us. But if we go out on our own saying, I can do it myself, I'm fine, then we're not zocheh to that divine protection. So we should be zocheh to incorporate all these 4 different approaches to this word Eikev that we discussed in the past few minutes. We should all be zocheh to incorporate that into our lives and live life the way it should be lived. Wishing everyone a gavaldig, wonderful Shabbos.